let's take a look at running backs, Quan, top 12. Again, way too early stuff here. I got some rankings along with the tiers. So the tiers are in the bracket for the tier people out there. And I think tiers are important. I think tiers are actually more important than rankings, honestly. But, people like rankings. So CMC for me, I've seen enough, right? I think it's the perfect spot in San Fran. A lot of people were scared to draft Christian McCaffrey this past year. I am on the bats today. A lot of people were afraid to draft him. They were. You can't stay healthy. He was healthy, and he was a beast, right? He played 17 games. He was just phenomenal across the board, and certainly in San Fran, like a touchdown per game guy, receiving and rushing. He was just really, really good all year long. So he gets the nod for me. I'm not too worried about Elijah Mitchell. Even if his touches come down a little bit, he's just so efficient. We'll see what they do at the quarterback position. Trey Lance, the door is open again for Trey Lance with the injury to Brock Purdy. Austin Ekeler, I still believe he has elite years left. I traded Austin Ekeler in a dynasty league. I traded him straight out for Jalen Hurts. It's a 16-team dynasty league. I needed a quarterback. I'm happy with that trade. Also had to add Daniel Jones in there. So, the person I traded to, Jones and Ekeler, was happy with the outcome as well. But I still think Ekeler has another elite season. He's just been a touchdown machine, leads the NFL in touchdowns past couple of years. These are half point, by the way, but like full point, those guys would certainly get the nods. Saquon in the next tier here, Saquon, Derrick Henry, and yes, Nick Chubb, along with Jonathan Taylor and Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, number one fantasy running back this past season. He was the rushing leader. He was fantastic. I have some questions who the quarterback is going to be. If it is Rodgers, that would be enough for me to bump Jacobs up, maybe ahead of maybe Henry and Chubb. I like, Henry in a dynasty. We've been down this road before, sell high for this guy in dynasty. I don't think you're fooling anybody, but still another really solid season from Derrick Henry this year. 13 touchdowns. In terms of fantasy points per game, this guy was number 3 in a half-point setting. Ekeler, CMC, then Henry, ahead of Jacobs, ahead of Saquon. But my thing with Henry this year is what we talked about before the season started. His involvement through the air was a different Henry. You added more catches to his game, more targets, 41 targets, 33 grabs, nearly 400 receiving yards. Like, they were starting to have some screens in his play as well. And for me, I'm just a sucker for Nick Chubb. And I know when people look at this list, they're going to pick apart Nick Chubb. They're going to have questions about Breece Hall and maybe Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams coming off a significant injury. Breece Hall coming off a significant injury. Give me the young blood in Walker, Hall, Stevenson, Etienne, and Williams over Joe Mixon, over Dalvin Cook. Like, those guys are fine, but I want the young blood. I know what I'm going to get with the other guys. A kind of a down year for Mixon in terms of efficiency, 3.9 yards per carry. He did catch a ton of passes, 60 receptions for Joe Mixon this year. But give me the young blood. We saw Stevenson kind of like in a bell cow role. Maybe Harris isn't brought back. He's an unrestricted free agent. 69 grabs from Rhamondre Stevenson, 421 receiving yards. He was great through the air. He had 1,000 yards on the ground. And he did have to compete early on in the year with Damian Harris. Travis Etienne, we saw what he could do in his backfield. I do believe that they'll have another guy. I don't know if he's like a guy that they want to give the ball to like 20 plus times on the ground. And I'm a big believer in Javonte Williams. Significant injury, of course. It sounds like he's going to be ready to go to start the season. No Melvin Gordon, Sean Payton, new offense. I could see a lot of catches from him as well. I mean, it was a very small sample size, but he was like one of the lone bright spots for the Broncos this season. And I'm just a sucker for Breece Hall. I know he may miss some time potentially, but 15.1 fantasy points per game in a half-point setting. That was the 7th best mark, right there with Chubb. And my thinking for Chubb is just he's always there every year. 1,500 rushing yards. He is just there every single year. He caught 21 passes this year. No Kareem Hunt, no Dearness Johnson. Maybe they draft a third down back. Maybe they don't. I'm sure they're going to bring in somebody. It's going to be a pass-catching back, and everybody will be sour on Nick Chubb. He doesn't catch any passes, yada, yada, yada. But he was fine with Deshaun Watson. You figure Deshaun Watson another year with the team here. I was just kind of thrown in, hadn't played a lot of football. We saw some receiving touchdowns. We saw some games with receptions from look at week 16, 5 grabs, 6 targets, 45 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown on top of 77 rushing yards. Yeah, I'd sign me up for that. Nick Chubb, in my opinion, is still the best pure runner in the game. And if you're going to add a couple catches to him, and all the goal line work, as Adam brings up, Nick Chubb has to be number 1. Hunt, free agency. How many times have we seen Hunt steal some goal line reps? Annoying. Absolutely annoying. May not see that this year. So that's why I have Nick Chubb as high as I do. And we'll see what happens at the quarterback position with Josh Jacobs as well. And I'm willing to roll the dice on Jonathan Taylor, but let's keep in mind, it could be one of the worst offenses in football.